The funeral procession moved through the crystalline streets of Thrycar Prime with absolute silence. Thousands of Thrycan warriors lined the boulevard, their massive forms standing at rigid attention. Each wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the twin suns, but their heads were bowed in a gesture rarely seen from a species known across the galaxy as the fiercest warriors in existence. At the center of the procession, 6 Thrycan honor guards carried a simple wooden coffin on their shoulders. The coffin was human-made, crafted from earth oak, and stood in stark contrast to the advanced technology surrounding it. Behind it walked Commander Vash, his scarred face unreadable, his amber eyes fixed straight ahead. A young Thrycan soldier, fresh from the academy, stood among the crowd. He had arrived on Thrycar Prime only days ago and knew nothing of recent events. Confused by the unprecedented display, he leaned toward a grizzled veteran beside him. "Who's in the coffin?" he whispered. The veteran's jaw tightened. When he spoke, his voice carried both reverence and grief. "The human who rescued our cubs." The young soldier's eyes widened. "A human? We're honoring a human with full military rights. Watch and learn, whelp." The veteran growled softly. "Watch and learn what true honor means." 3 months earlier, Kalen had arrived on Thrycar Prime as part of a human diplomatic mission. He was not a soldier, not a politician, just a civilian educator assigned to help establish cultural exchange programs. The Thrycans had been skeptical. Humans were small, physically weak by galactic standards, and their emotional nature was often mocked by warrior races. Kalen didn't seem to care about any of that. He walked through the military compound with quiet confidence, greeting everyone he passed with a genuine smile. The Thrycan warriors found him strange. He asked questions about their families, their traditions, their lives outside of combat. No off-worlder had ever cared before. The turning point came during an ordinary afternoon. Kalen was touring the compound's educational facility where young Thrycan cubs learned basic skills. The facility was located near the compound's edge, close to the massive fusion generators that powered the entire complex. Commander Vash was giving the tour himself, curious about this unusual human who seemed genuinely interested in Thrycan culture. As they walked through the training halls, alarms suddenly screamed to life. The compound's emergency systems detected a critical failure in Generator 3. Catastrophic overload was imminent. Evacuation protocols initiated, a mechanical voice announced. "All personnel evacuate immediately. Generator breach in 90 seconds. Vash's blood ran cold. The Cub facility was directly in the blast radius. He sprinted toward the training halls, his powerful legs covering ground in massive strides. Behind him, Kalen ran too, his shorter human legs pumping frantically to keep pace. They burst into the main hall to find chaos. 30 young cubs, none older than 6 seasons, huddled in terrified groups. Their instructor had already evacuated, probably assuming the cubs would follow. But young Thrycans didn't think clearly under extreme stress. Fear paralyzed them. "Move," Vash roared, using his command voice. A few cubs responded, scrambling toward the exits. But most remained frozen. 60 seconds to generator breach. Vash began physically grabbing cubs, throwing them toward the exits with enough force to overcome their paralysis. Kalen did the same, though his human strength meant he could only carry one at a time. He worked frantically, his face pale but determined. 40 seconds. Half the cubs were out. Vash moved like a machine, his warrior training kicking in. Grab, throw, move. Grab, throw, move. Beside him, Kalen matched his rhythm despite his smaller size. 20 seconds. 10 cubs remained. Vash's combat computer ran calculations instantly. He could save perhaps 6 more. The math was brutal and clear. Some would die. Then Kalen did something that defied all Thrycan understanding of humans. He stopped evacuating cubs and ran deeper into the facility. "Human, what are you doing?" Vash bellowed. Kalen didn't answer. He sprinted toward the emergency systems panel, his fingers flying over controls he shouldn't have understood. The Thrycan interface was designed for 4-fingered hands twice the size of human ones, but Kalen adapted, using both hands to manipulate controls meant for one. 10 seconds. "Kalen, get out." Vash grabbed the last cub within reach and threw it toward safety. The human's hands never stopped moving. He pulled up emergency protocols, bypassed 3 safety systems, and activated the manual vent controls. It was technically impossible. Human fingers weren't strong enough to trigger the manual overrides. But Kalen triggered them anyway, though Vash heard bones crack even over the alarms. 5 seconds. Superheated plasma vented skyward in a controlled burn instead of an explosion. The emergency system stabilized. The facility shuddered but held. In the sudden silence after the alarm stopped, Vash heard only heavy breathing. He found Kalen collapsed beside the control panel, both hands broken and bleeding, his face gray with pain. But he was smiling. "All the cubs safe?" he whispered. "Yes," Vash said quietly. "All of them." Kalen nodded once, then passed out. The Thryken medical teams did everything they could. Human physiology was different enough from theirs that they struggled, but they tried. Kalen had not only broken both hands, but had been exposed to radiation during the plasma vent. The doses weren't immediately fatal, but they accumulated. His small human body couldn't process the damage as quickly as a Thryken's would. For 3 weeks, Kalen fought. The cubs visited every day, bringing drawings and songs. Vash came every evening, sitting beside the human's bed in silence. Sometimes they talked. Kalen shared stories about Earth, about human children and schools, and the simple joy of watching young ones learn. "You should have run," Vash said one night. "Could you have?" Kalen asked, his voice weak but steady. Vash had no answer. They both knew the truth. A warrior might sacrifice himself for cubs. It was logical, expected even. But Kalen had made a different choice. He hadn't sacrificed himself because it was expected or logical. He did it because the cubs were scared, and he couldn't leave them. That was pure human instinct, not warrior logic, just compassion. Now, as the procession continued through the streets, Commander Vash remembered that conversation. Around him, thousands of Thryken warriors stood in tribute to a small human who had possessed more courage than any of them had believed possible. The young soldier whispered another question. What happened to him? The veteran's voice was rough. He saved 30 cubs, used strength he shouldn't have had, broke himself doing it. Radiation took him 3 days ago, but he was just a human, the soldier said. Confused, the veteran turned to face him fully. He was just a human who taught us that strength isn't measured in size or combat ability. It's measured in what you're willing to give for others. The procession reached the memorial grounds. As the honor guard lowered the simple wooden coffin, every Thryken warrior present struck their chest plates in salute. The sound echoed like thunder across the city. Commander Vash stepped forward and placed his hand on the coffin. "For the cubs," he said simply. Around him, thousands of voices repeated the words. "For the cubs." In the crowd, 30 young Thrykens stood together, their faces solemn. They would grow up to be warriors like their parents. But they would also remember the small human who had taught them that the truest strength comes from caring, not from fighting. They would remember Kalen.